Good morning, everyone. Welcome to CBN. I'd like to have each and every last one of you introduce yourself. Give me your name, where you are speaking from, and about a 30-second, minute introduction about your business. I'll call you the way I see you on my screen. I'm going to start at the bottom this morning. Jerry Luco, please.
Good morning, Jerry Luca with Franchise Business Source. I help wannabe and aspiring franchisees find a perfect fit franchise business that gets them the money and the lifestyle that they've really been dreaming of. Not everybody wants to start from scratch and reinvent the wheel. So I help them find something that has that kind of support safety net and the playbook for success, and letting them build the legacy that they've been hoping for. Jerry Luca, Franchise Business Source.
Thank you, Jerry. Adele Bush.
Good morning, everybody. Adele Bush here, live, Columbus, Ohio. It's great to see all of you. My business is ASB Business Services, LLC. We do personalized, customized, and exclusive executive telephone outreach. We do business research and prospect development, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. I recently discovered that our capability could include being a fractional business development manager for a small business or business development support for a large sales team. And this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking to possibly connect with a business or a sales team that needs some business development support a few hours a month. Adele Bush with ASB Business Services, LLC.
Thank you, Adele. John Vandersall.
Thank you. Good morning, John Vandersall, residential real estate agent with the FC Tucker Company. My office out of Keystone of the Crossing branch. And I have a quick ask for this week. Keep in mind, should you hear of anyone asking or looking into purchasing new construction, I can help with that too. Those model homes have reps and their models. That's nice. The buyer can still bring me on as their representative. My commission is built into the price of that house, whether you work with me or not. So why not have some representation?
I'm muted. Rhoda.
Good morning, everyone, from here in Indianapolis. My team and I write because clients don't have time to both do it and say it. So we say it for them, telling their story online through blogs and website content. So we say it for you.
Thank you, Rhoda. Zach Fox, please.
Good morning, everyone. Zach Fox, financial advisor with Edward Jones. My office is located in the southeast suburbs of Indianapolis, and I service the Indianapolis market. I'm also licensed in Ohio, Michigan, Florida, Colorado, as well as a few others. So if you have any investing needs personally or for your business, happy to discuss those with you. Thank you very much.
Zach Fox. David Garrison, please.
I'm Dave Garrison with Mutual of Omaha Mortgage. I'm a reverse mortgage loan originator. I live near Martinsville, Indiana, and I spend my time educating and working with wealth advisors, real estate agents, and their clients, and utilizing their housing wealth to enhance their retirement years. As I look at the screen, I know at least 3 or 4 or 5 of you guys are on a weekly email where I send out a blog post that Rhoda writes. So if you guys would like to see an example of Rhoda's writing, which I've been very happy with for the last year, it's called Shifting into Reverse. It comes out on Tuesdays. It's just some simple ideas of how reverse mortgages are used by the mass affluent in America.
I like that. Shifting into reverse. That's pretty good.
And that's Rhoda's idea. It wasn't mine.
That's pretty cute there. I get that. So thank you so much, all you guys. With that, what I'd like to do is get Gerald on. I didn't. I'm sorry, Nick. Nick Sullivan.
I'm going to take a minute now. I'm just kidding.
No, take your time.
Now, Nick Sullivan, Sullivan Business Solutions here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I work with Main Street businesses to improve profitability and cash flow. This week alone, the last 3 days, I met with a motorcycle dealership with 40 employees that just bought a building. Met with a skin care treatment center that wants a merchant services audit and interested in ERC, employee retention credits. Meeting with a restaurant tomorrow, has 40 employees. WOTC, Workers Opportunity Tax Credits and employee retention credits. And a contractor at 11 o'clock. So these are Main Street businesses. If you know Main Street businesses that want to improve cash flow and profitability, see what federal programs and expense reduction opportunities are out there, just have them contact me.
Thank you so much. Hopefully I didn't miss anyone else. With that, I'd like to introduce our speaker, lawyer Gerald Cowan. Gerald, you are now in charge, sir.
Okay, thank you. I want to first thank Rhoda for inviting me to be a part of this group. It's been very beneficial. I've enjoyed it a lot, and I'm gaining every time I hear a speaker. For some reason, my internet is a little unstable today. I don't know why, but if I freeze, Keith assures me that I'll be back soon.
And there he goes.
And there he goes.
Questions. Lots of good news. Indiana has repealed its inheritance tax. There is no inheritance tax in Indiana. The federal taxes, the first $11.7 million is free of any tax whatsoever. And if a person's married, it can be twice that amount with proper planning. So the most important thing I can do today is communicate with you. My goal is for you to benefit from this time. I'm not here to try to impress you with how much I know. That would be probably a short speech. But I want to communicate. And if something is not clear, please ask for clarification. And the most important thing we can do today is answer questions that you have. So the floor is open for questions. Well, those were good. Now, one of the questions I received by email is, I already have a will, why do I need an estate plan? Estate plan typically includes higher net worth people who may want to have a trust for minor children, a trust for elderly people. They may have certain objects that they want left to certain people. There's a lot of things that can be done with an estate plan other than just what we call a sweetheart will. Okay, all right. I'm sorry. I'll do the best I can.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Any questions?
I sent you a, go ahead, Rhoda.
This is just something I hope Jerry will remind everybody. A lot of teens, so you may have kids, or I don't think anybody has grandkids that are, except for me, that are college age. But as they go off to college, they need estate planning documents, because some colleges will actually not, if something, God forbid, happens and there's an accident and the teen, or the 20-year-old even now is an adult legally, and the information will not be given to the parents unless there's a document that says that it's okay to do that. So that needs to be taken care of before they go away. So I'm hoping Jerry will amplify that.
Okay, Rhoda, they say those who fail to plan to fail. And it's important to comply with the admissions requirements at the school, the notifications, the consents that need to be signed. And that should be handled with each individual at each individual institution where they go. They know what they need. The most important thing is to give them what they require, not what we think they might want. So it's an individual thing, but that's a good point. Thank you. Okay, speak up at any point if you have any questions. I'll share with you some thoughts that I have, and I'll also go back to these questions. It's important to be a good steward of the assets that we've been given. What much is given, much is required. And along that line, it's been said that experience is a hard teacher. It gives the test before it gives the lesson. Experience is a hard teacher. It gives the test before it gives the lesson. And how true that is. I've been involved in situations where there was no will whatsoever. Things are in chaos. No one knows who's in charge. No one has any idea what the person wanted done. They worked their entire lifetime to accumulate assets, but have not taken a few hours and a few $100s to put their plan in place. It's hard to understand it, but it happens. And it's been said that 7 out of 10 people do not have a will. I think the most current research puts that at more like 50-50, about half do and half don't. Zach.
Yeah, Mike, quick question here for you. You talked about the 11.7 figure. I have heard that figure is actually going to be going down in a couple years. Can you speak more to that?
Well, thank you, Zach. That's a good question. It's anybody's guess what Bernie Sanders is going to do and what Congress will pass. Bernie has said he would like to see the exemption go down to 3.5 million. I'm advising many of my clients who are in the higher net worth category to be sure and use up the 11.7 million that they have now, so that they don't lose that if the law is changed. But you know, when Congress is in session, no one is safe. Who knows what they're going to do? But that's what the prevailing thinking is, as far as I can tell. Okay,
Hey, Jerry.
Yes.
Jerry, one of my first questions, it's a basic question. I think everybody always asks this question. How much does this thing cost?
Okay, great question. What I like to do is quote fee estimates up front. Take the fear out of an individual working with me. As best I can, I will estimate the cost in some sort of a fee range. And I'll work with them if they need to massage the amount. But basically, it's like you're going to build a house. Now, John knows a little bit about building houses. You got to know if you want a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, if you 30 minutes to put together a outline of what the client wants. And then once you know what kind of house they want to build, you're going to know how long it takes to build it and therefore how much it's going to cost. So we try to let the air out of the balloon on the fees up front as best we can, depending on the circumstance. That makes it for a more relaxed meeting because that is a common concern of everyone. Planning, it's important to know that joint titling of assets will cancel out a will. Now, between husband and wife, of course, that's quite common. But if someone has joint assets with someone other than their spouse, that can trump the will. That can cancel out what the will says. So joint assets, I always ask, do you have any assets in joint names with anyone else? And what do you want done with those assets? Now, a will is important. It's important to have a power of attorney, which can be quite a savings. And if needed, have a living will to let people know what your wishes are in the event your doctor says you're terminally ill. I've had clients who said to me, we had a living will, and when my mom or dad was in the emergency room, we knew what they wanted, and we carried it through, and there was happy family. Others have said, we had the biggest fight in the world because we didn't know. One kid wanted mom and dad to be put on life support, the other one didn't. And it was a big fight in the emergency room. You want to avoid that if at all possible. Now, it's important when you have a will in place to treat it like your eye exam or your medical exam. Review it periodically. Or to the dentist. You don't go to the dentist one time when you're a certain age and never go back. If you do, then you're going to have a mouthful of cavities. If you have a will and it's written one time, you never look at it, it's going to be a mess as time passes. I've had clients who've looked at their will and they've looked up and said, oh my gosh, is that still in my will? Which means they haven't read it. I recommend at least every 5 years, review your estate plan to be sure that it's up to date. Now, It is important to know that for those in high net worth categories, the federal estate tax can be up to 40%. I mean, that's almost unbelievable that the tax could be that high. Now, it's common for people to not review their estate plan. If they move from one state to another state, it's important to check the state law because wills are a creature of each state law. Some people try to draft their own wills using forms on the internet or places like that. They're the ones that usually end up paying the most money in the estate settlement process. When you're not used to speaking a lot, sometimes it puts a little strain. So it is possible to give up to $15,000 a year to any number of different people. I don't have anything to leave. Why do I need an estate plan? Well, all you have is a lot if it's all you have. And why not express your wishes? And it can be a simple, a few $100 situation. Guardianship is someone out of guardianship. Guardianship is where an individual loses their capacity and a court appoints someone to manage their affairs. It takes a doctor's certificate to do that. And the court is very particular. They require typically the person to come to court in person so that avoid a guardianship if there's one that's executed and one that's in place. A conservatorship is the same as a guardianship in most states. It's important when you talk with your lawyer to take a list of assets with you. Take a list of beneficiaries with their names typed out and their addresses and their relationships. This cuts down time, and time is money, and prior preparation is always a good idea. Now, here's a couple of stories that I might interlead here. I had a lady call me, said my brother's in the hospital. He's had a stroke. We went to his apartment to try to figure out what was going on. It was a run-down apartment near 11th and Meridian Street. The manager said he's the only apartment that had never been modernized. But here's the point. In his coat pocket in the closet, there was a set of keys. The appraiser says to me, "Jerry, this is a lockbox key." We called around to the banks and finally found that he had a lockbox at 16th and Illinois. I opened the lockbox. He had $500,000 of securities in his lockbox. He had been a mail carrier, but he had bought stocks every month. Another situation was we opened the lockbox and the elderly couple had $10,000 of cash in the lockbox. And the son said, well, they were always afraid of the Depression. They wanted to be sure they had plenty of cash on hand. It is possible to do some planning when someone is terminally ill. There are things that can be done to save income taxes. I would bring in a CPA in that case since I'm not giving income tax advice. It is also possible to do what's called after death or post-mortem estate planning, where the inheritance can be rearranged in a tax-wise manner and save the family a lot of money in the long run. Another question that I had here is what documents should I provide? Well, I'd like to have a copy of the deed to the real estate that the people own in my file so that I don't have to ask for it later, because we may not even know where it is later. Some people know where your documents are, because if something happens to you, you're not going to be able to tell them. It doesn't take that long to complete an estate plan. Usually within a few weeks, it can be completed. Typically, drafts are emailed out. Clients have a chance to read them. And from then, additions are made. A signing ceremony is set. Yes, I'm frozen. How much time do I have, Keith?
Oh, you got about 10 more minutes or so. But I got a quick question.
Good.
What's the relationship between estate planning, Medicare, and Medicaid? In other words, I don't want all my money taken away.
Well, the estate plan can take into account those benefits that come. I don't work a whole lot in the Medicaid area, but there are ways in which plans can be made in your estate plan with respect to Medicaid. It's a government program. It's essentially for those who have no money. There are lawyers who make a lot of money making plans to invest assets in a certain fashion that would preserve the Medicaid benefits. The charges, essentially a lawyer, and each lawyer has an hourly rate. That hourly rate does not necessarily apply to estate planning because it's more of a fixed price area with respect to estate planning. An example of why a power of attorney would be, say we've got an elderly couple. I'm getting some feedback here.
We're getting a lot of feedback. You got more than one computer open?
Okay, they look like they're closed now.
Okay.
An elderly couple have the house in joint names. Well, they say that's wonderful if one dies, the other one owns it. Totally, that's fine. But what happens if one is disabled? If one is disabled, then the only way, here it's usually the men, we usually cooperate and go first. Here she is in the home, it needs painting, the grass needs mowing, the window's rotting, and she says, what am I going to do? Say, well, the only way you can sell the house, you have to get his consent too. So you have to have a guardianship created in order to be able to have the court authorize the signing of the deed on his behalf. Say, well, another way to do it is to have a power of attorney. And if the power of attorney is in place, she can sign her name and she can sign his name by her. It's a simple, streamlined process and saves lots of money. Now, a trust can be used as part of estate planning. A trust can be used for the benefit of minor children to allow the funds to be sprinkled to them and then eventually paid out in larger amounts. A trust can be used for high net worth estate planning, where you take advantage of the tax advice and benefits from an estate plan. Where there is no will, the spouse only gets part of the decedent's estate, unless it's jointly held. As I said earlier, jointly held assets trump the will. But if there is, I had a situation recently where the man had left the house in his name alone for some reason. And so the surviving spouse gets a half ownership in the house, and the children, if there are any, get a share of the other half. And it goes on down the line. If there's no will and 3/4 of the estate and there's survived by, if there's all the net estate would go to the surviving spouse if there's no children and no parents. So the statute, you do have a will. The state made the will for you. It's in the statute. It may or may not be what you want. The important thing is for people to say what they would like to have.
Hey, Gerald, Zach had a question right quick.
Yeah, Zach, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. Go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. This is kind of backing up a little bit to what we were talking about before with Keith mentioned Medicaid. I've heard one strategy being that you can put a number of investments and even property into a trust to help protect that against Medicaid. Can you speak to that?
I'm sorry, it cut out briefly. Could you just give me a brief repeat?
Yeah, so I've heard that you can, when you create a trust, you can put investments and property into that trust to help protect against spend down on Medicaid. Can you speak to that at all?
I can speak to it to this extent. I don't do that kind of planning, but there are special requirements that must be included in the trust for it to be exempt, an exempt asset so that Medicaid can be obtained. I typically work with people who have substantial assets, and that's not a problem, but it is possible. And you know, the thing that I have to do is to try to make complicated situations simple, to make them understandable, to explain them, and to say to people, if something is not clear, let me know. I used to work with a very intelligent, very advanced estate planner, and I would discuss concepts with him, and he would give me an example, and I'd say, can you kind of slow down and come in for a slower landing, bring it down a little bit so it's understandable. And from that, I learned the importance of trying to communicate and trying to do so to answer the questions that people have. And the other thing is, with an appointment with healthcare representative, a simple 1-page, 2-page form that's witnessed and signed. When you go into the hospital, if you're not able to make your own healthcare decisions, you can say who you want to make those decisions for you. And these answers, of course, are based on Indiana law, but most states have similar type of laws, I'm finding. There's no chaos about, well, mom wanted me to decide, dad wanted me to decide. Well, there's 2 of us instead of 3, so it's a deadlock. If there's 3 of us, then there can be a decision. These things are benefits you can do for your family. Give your family peace of mind. And you need to look for a specialist in the estate planning area. Many lawyers do all kinds of work. When you have a need for estate planning, look for a specialist. And if you need help in finding someone, give me a ring, send me an email, and I will suggest somebody in your area. But the thing that I've found over the years is that clients in every case I say, okay, you're done, everything is signed. And I say, oh my gosh, I feel so good. I'm so happy I got this done. It's behind me. So peace of mind is something that's brought up the joy of knowing. Yeah, it's important to make it as convenient. I just worked with a man, 82 years old, a few days ago, and as I was walking out, he looked up and said, "You made this pretty simple." And I said, I do my best to try to make it as simple and easy for you as I can, because it's important in working with clients to put them at ease about fees, put them at ease about the content of their documents, put them at ease about follow through. Now, in a estate settlement, chaos breaks loose. Somebody's passed away. Nobody knows where the assets are. They don't know what to do. They don't know who's in charge. I've worked with those situations for more than 30 years, and I know secure and insure. Secure any assets that can be carried off. Be sure everything is insured. I had a house worth $200,000 some years ago that was insured for $75,000. The son said, well, mom just didn't want to pay insurance premiums. Well, first thing we did was kick that coverage up right away, because the executor is responsible for the safety of the house. It was underinsured, and they could be liable. Also, keeping a good record of your assets, keeping a good record of your portfolio, keeping a good record of where things are located in terms of like a coin collection, a stamp collection, things like that. Those things can disappear so easily if there's no surviving spouse. It's important to communicate where those assets are. So it's basically a matter of back and forth. More questions if you have them, they're welcome. They're welcome. I know my time is starting to run a little bit short, but the goal is to be able to answer as many questions as I could and to make things clear. It's not hard to do. It's not terribly expensive in view of what spent working hard day in and day out. Take care of your assets. Take care of your estate plan. Get peace of mind and work with someone you're comfortable, someone who communicates well with you, and someone preferably. And that will give you peace of mind. Review your plan periodically. Pretend like it's your dental exam, your annual exam. Its laws do change. Asset structures change. Some people's net worth balloon from an inheritance. Your desires may change. Only through making a will can you make a gift to a church or charity or other organization. Valuable family heirlooms. Certain items are intended to go to certain children. That can be covered. That can be done in a memorandum. The memorandum can be incorporated into the will if it meets the statutory requirements, which are fairly simple. And I just might share one other thing. If you or someone you know is worth millions and millions of dollars, it is possible to have an estate plan where the estate could pay no death tax at all through the use of a charitable lead trust. And each spouse uses up their exemption, and then they put the money into a charitable lead trust. And in 15 years or so, depending on the statute, the money comes out of that trust free of death tax. That's called zeroing out the estate plan. And if someone's worth that much money, then their children would probably already have a whole lot of assets anyway. And to use up the other part of the 11.7 million can also help the children. And hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars in death tax that would otherwise be in the 40% category can be wiped out through this. It's called a delayed inheritance trust, a delayed inheritance trust. So with that, Keith, I've shared as much as I can. Are there any other questions?
Yes, there were two questions I know for sure. John and Jerry both. I'm sorry, John and Adele had. John, you had your hand up first.
Thanks, Keith. And thank you, Jerry, for sharing your knowledge and wisdom guidance with the group. I have a question about power of attorney.
Yes.
Do those documents have an expiration date?
Very good question. No, they do not have an expiration date, but I like to have the power of attorney as a fresh document, like roughly 5. I don't like them when they're more than 5 years old, because I've gone to a bank with a power of attorney with the client. The banker looks up and says, "This thing's 10 years old. How do I know what they wanted?" So I think it's a good idea to keep them fresh. They do not, however, have an expiration date. Okay. And Adele, did you have a question?
Actually, just a comment, Gerald.
Sure.
On what you were saying about knowing where everything is. This is something that my husband and I are working on. We're preparing like a big fireproof case that has copies of all our pertinent documents, like our trust, deed to the house, insurance policies, keys to the safety deposit box, all that stuff. And we want to make sure that our daughters know where it is at all times. So I think that's worth investing in. And, talk to your attorneys about what you feel you need to have available for your heirs. That's just my comment.
Well, I might add to that. Passwords are very important. There's a hard situation if the passwords are not known. I mean, it's just a lot of work to get into those accounts if that's the case.
That's
Thank
true.
You.
Nick Sullivan.
Yes, to Dell's question, what's the best way to, obviously if you died and no one can find the will, it kind of defeats the purpose. And if should you provide the will to your beneficiaries, or if you update the will and change the beneficiaries, which will takes precedence? Is it based on the date of the will?
Okay, second question first. Yes, the latest will does control. A will typically revokes all prior wills automatically by the wording contained in the document. As far as the first question, where should the will be located? I like to see them in the safety deposit box. Why? Because they won't burn down, they won't be lost. Years ago, Indiana did require an inventory of every safety while to get that inventory done and the box opened. But now there's no longer an inheritance tax. And since there's no inheritance tax, a really good place is a safety deposit box. Now, many people have a little gray file cabinet they keep in the closet. I mean, that works, but of course, nothing like the benefit of a safety deposit box and knowing where the keys are to that box. Of course, they're very important too. Thank you.
Should you give a will to, should be in the safe deposit box, and that should be the loan place, or should you give a copy to anyone else?
Well, your executor should know where your will is located, the executor you've named. Most of my clients don't want to go ahead and give out their will to their children or to other beneficiaries. Mainly, not so much with respect to the children, but if they have other beneficiaries in their will, like sometimes they have the church or charity or Christian organization or something like that, they may change their mind. They don't have to explain to people later why they changed their mind. So among the close family and where everything is distributed equally, there's not much of a problem in giving a copy of the will to the children. One kid may say, well, why did you choose Joe as the executor and not Sam? Things like that can come up. Typically, people will choose their eldest child. And if not that, then someone who's more experienced with business matters. Okay?
Hey, Gerald, do you provide any electronic retention?
I'm not into the electronic. The younger lawyers are doing that now, and it's kind of the thing. You need to start it and keep it going. I have most of my documents are electronically recorded, but those have not yet been signed. And on that topic, I could mention I signed copy, and we were able through.
Hey, you may have to repeat that because you went out on us.
I'm sorry. A man had a will, but we didn't know where it was. So through a statutory procedure, we were able to produce an unsigned copy of the will and settle the estate, distributed about $250,000 to a charity that he had named. And then after it was done, we found the signed copy of the will. So it is possible to work with an unsigned copy, but not first choice. Anybody else? I like these questions.
Right, but the will doesn't take precedence over IRAs and mutual or life insurance or whatever, because the beneficiaries on those override the will, right?
Another good observation. Yes, beneficiaries should be reviewed. They do take precedence over the will. It's important to keep them up to date. I've found situations where people have had ex-spouses still named as beneficiaries, and that's just amazing. Part of the plan is to go through the beneficiaries with people and remind them about that. Very good point, Nick. Very good. Anybody else?
Any additional questions? Rhoda, please.
Just an observation. All of us here today are in sort of an advisory capacity.
Yes.
So one of the things that's important to do is explain to the client what they are going to have to do. And I've been a client of John's. So there were certain things that as a seller of my condo, I had to do. He could not do those things for me. I had to do them. And as a client of Jerry going through the estate plan, there was so many things that I needed to think about and that I needed to gather and I needed to do, and lists that I needed to make and passwords that I needed to list. So I think part of the initial consultation for each of us should include that. So the client really understands, hey, this is not going to be, one and done. And you walk out of here and say, yes, you made it simple, which was a great compliment to Jerry, but that doesn't let you off the hook. You're still going to have to do the work. If we went to a psychologist, we can't say, fix me. The psychologist is going to give us things that we have to do and think about and exercises and so on. So it's the same way for all of us as consultants, as advisors.
And Rhoda is very thorough and she covers the details. And anyone who's really good covers the details. So your record keeping can be very helpful. It can save time. Saving time saves money. And I had one client who had a notebook, and he had dividers, and he had his bank accounts one area, his brokerage accounts in another, his real estate in the other, his other assets. And working through his estate, we don't have to hunt for stuff. Many times you have to hunt, you have to monitor the mail to find bank accounts. But the better records you keep, the less time it takes, and the more money you save.
Yeah, and start early. I know that's
we
tough. Start early, right?
Start early. And when I first began practicing law, a trust officer friend of mine says, I'm going to write you a will. I said, oh, okay. So he did, and he said, okay, I do that with every lawyer. I say, okay, get the will done. You signed your first will. From then on, it's not the first time you've ever done something like that. Start early. Younger couples want to name a guardian for their children. I didn't know that there would be a lot of people here who would have young children, but some of your kids are going to want to name a guardian. It is subject to court approval, but it's generally approved. The court just reserves the right to veto a situation where someone has kind of gone off the deep end on alcohol or drugs or something like that. But typically what the people want, the court does honor in naming a guardian. And I'm open to more questions. I've pretty much covered most of the list of what Keith sent. You've asked some good questions. I hope I've given you some good answers. And if something is not clear, let me know.
Anyone else with a question? Adele, please.
One last question, Gerald. Is it advisable to keep original copies of the document? Like I said, my husband and I are assembling everything for our daughters. Is it advisable to keep original copies of the deed to the house, the original copies of the insurance policies and things like that? Or is it good just to have copies in the folder directing the heirs to where the original documents are?
Yeah. Many of my clients will put the originals in the lockbox, but they'll have a photocopy they keep at home so that they have it handy to look at or to review. A lot of times we'll note on the copy of the will the location of the original. I just worked with a man, the 82-year-old man. He wanted a codicil to his will, which is an amendment to the will. It's short and sweet. Well, in his case, I said to him, where are the original wills? I want to make a note in my file as to where you're keeping the original wills. And even when a will is signed the first time, I'll say, please tell me where you intend to store this will. And then we can talk about what the best options are. Yes, originals can be very important. It is possible to probate a will that's a photocopy. And as I said, sometimes you can do it with an unsigned will. But there's a lot of extra procedures involved in doing that. But the more information you can provide, like I said, the more time it saves and the less the cost. And another thing is the faster the estate can be settled. You don't have to spend time looking for things. Thank you for all these questions.
Thank you, Gerald.
Okay. I think Rhoda's point is the key here. We got to do something. Jerry can provide the support, the technical support, all these ancillary services, but you have to take an active participation in this process. Before you guys got on, Me and Jerry were talking about it. I don't know why people avoid this, because it gets messy, and each and every last one of us has got family stories of mess because that person, as Rhoda said, didn't interact, didn't do their piece of it. Bringing in guys like, whether it's Gerald or Zach or anybody, any other service provider on the back end, when you didn't do what you were supposed to, you're just creating a mess for people. And some people go, I don't give a damn, I won't be here. Well, yeah, but you just made a big mess. So, you know, we can talk all day about that. Hey, with that, you guys have a great week. Thank you, Gerald. It's just a great reminder for us to like do what you got to do. I will be seeing you guys in a couple of weeks. We're going to be talking about something which is, I believe she's our next speaker, funerals. I know it's kind of morbid, people. It just so happened these two went back to back, but that involves you doing some stuff again. So with that, hasta la vista. I'll see you guys in a week or two. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.